We are live, 10 o'clock, Friday morning, 10th of July. Good. Right, anyone that has joined the conversation live, slightly different time this. I normally actually do them around midday so folk can catch it on the lunch hour. But for those that have joined live, thank you for committing some time to listen to this conversation. It will be useful, got no doubt. Anyone that's watching on record, watching back, thank you again for spending some time listening to this conversation. So by way of introduction, before we get stuck in, what is the event called today? So alcohol awareness, why this week? Big week this week. An organisation called Alcohol Change promotes a week this week around alcohol awareness. And actually the theme for alcohol awareness this week, which is very, 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 very poignant for myself and my guest today, is alcohol and work. Now, I'm going to drop into the comments, I'll drop a link to the Alcohol Change website, but in particular, there's a brilliant video, short video, that probably summarises exactly what this conversation is going to be talking about, which is the normality, the social and corporate normality of alcohol. And I'm going to leave it at that point. So, by way of introduction, for those that don't know me, my name is Chris Howe. I am your results coach. My focus is I work with business leaders. My absolute ideal client is going to be a leader in recruitment. That's my background for half a life, and I still function and support the industry in different ways. My focus is to work with people who may need help in creating a more healthy relationship with alcohol. That may be to stop entirely if that needs to happen. And I think that's going to rear its head in today's conversation. I hope it does. Or equally, it's maybe getting a better control. But also alongside that, it's lifestyle and also business. So I like to work on the individual, get them functioning the right way, healthy, motivated, committed, strong mindset, and then look at how much that can then influence their business in terms of making more money, creating a healthier lifestyle, and just performing better in life and work. So that's me. Really chuffed to welcome Alex. We actually don't live that far away, so I'm probably not a million miles away from where he's sitting right now. But to host this event, it's better to do it in the way we've done it. So, Alex, over to you, pal. Just introduce yourself, please.
Morning, Chris. Yeah, and thanks for having me. It's really nice to be doing something with somebody local, and obviously, I know what your journey's been and what you've pivoted and you're doing now to help other people, and in terms of leadership, coaching, and to help people see things slightly differently. And I loved the comment about Alcohol Change, because Clarity have partnered up and worked with Alcohol Change quite a lot over the last few years, and I'm a big advocate in what they do and what they continue to do. And I think Clarity was formed 2.5 years ago, nearly 3 years ago now, with a want and a wish to be able to not tell anybody what to do, but to allow people to experience and see what type of events and what type of nights are possible without alcohol, effectively allowing people to go back to, I describe it as your childhood, because in our childhood, up until a certain point, we all got together, we all had amazing times, we all danced, sang, were silly, played games, and had a fabulous time as big communities, but without the need for alcohol. And those moments are really authentic and really special. And some of those moments we'll all remember, still now as adults. And the concept was, well, it's only been since everybody got introduced to alcohol that it becomes the norm that that's what you did. And, for so many years, it has been the norm that alcohol centered around everything to do with entertainment, everything to do with work, everything to do with entertaining clients. And slowly, and rightfully so, I'm going to say these days, the shift is changing. So it's a really poignant week for me, with what we do with Clarity and myself personally. And I think it's great just to come on and have a few conversations about different things.
Good, mate. Good. And I appreciate that. Thanks. We'll get into a bit more detail in some of this stuff, but I want to start with a question. I'd like to understand your thoughts on it. So, change what's gone on, change what's happened over the last few centuries, and however long the alcohol's been around. If alcohol was invented today, would it be legalized, in your opinion?
No, I don't think it would. I don't think it would, because ultimately it's a depressant ultimately, and basically it doesn't do us any good. It doesn't bring out the best version of anybody, whether it's on a night out or whether it's the next day or whether it's the time it takes to get out of your body, effectively. And I'm not going to sit here though and say that to demonize alcohol, because that's not me. That isn't me. Because for certain people, a balance is absolutely perfect. But in terms of a workplace culture, that balance is massively shifting. And I read some recent statistics only this week that I think it's 36% of the workforce are mindful and are very conscious about drinking around their colleagues. Now, that is over a third of the entire workforce. And I think about 20, 25 years ago, when I first came into the corporate world, that stat was probably about 3 to 5%. And that's how much of a shift that things are making at the moment. And I take a step further, and the statistic goes from something like 36% to over 50% of 18 to 35-year-olds. So the next generation that are coming through, that are going to be the next generation that are going to be leading the country, that are going to be heading up all the businesses, if over 50% of those people, individuals, are very conscious about drinking culture within the workplace already, then in 10 years' time, what's the work environment going to be around alcohol? It's going to be vastly different to what everybody's known. And that change is significantly coming. And it's already started. But I predict, and I will put my head above the parapet and predict, that in 5 to 10 years' time, the shift will be phenomenal. And if I take a step back and think, if I'd said to you, Chris, 10, 15 years ago that everybody would be meditating and doing sound baths, in 15 years' time, you'd have looked at me and told me that I was a hippie and that basically that I was basically crazy. But that's the reality. That's the reality, that things are shifting, and the old ways and what everybody has been used to is definitely moving.
I think so you just mentioned about a decade ago. So when I went on I hit the red button October the 30th, 2017. So 8 years ago nearly now. And in those that I remember going down the route of stopping drinking, and it was alien to a lot of people. Much different now. You can go out now, and it's more common. You see it all over LinkedIn. People are up taking breaks from alcohol. People have stopped drinking alcohol and sort of feeling better sleep, less anxiety, less all the stuff that comes with getting control of an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. But I think from where I was a decade ago, we'll go back 8 years ago to where it is now, you're right, there's a significant change, and the trends are changing. People, I think what was missing, and this is one of the reasons why these sort of conversations I hope will be really valuable for other people, because I go back a decade, I was ignorant, uneducated, unaware, not really a Scooby-Doo about the negative aspects of alcohol. Yes, you get a hangover, but certainly when you're younger, you can just wade through that and still get stuff done. But as the years start to tick by, that gets more and more difficult. But it took my own research and actually engaging with a coach myself to start to really learn and understand about what the other side, about what alcohol is actually doing to you and how it actually impacts you. So I was functioning with this constant level of stress. It never, ever, ever left me. And if the proverbial hit the fan in business or something happened at home, I would really spike in that stress would really significantly, acutely spike, and create anxiety and all sorts of stuff. It just felt awful. Now, I put that down because I grafted so hard in my recruitment career. I grafted so hard. My mentality was the harder I push, the more I lean into stress, the more resilient I'll become to that stress, and I grow and develop and blah, blah, blah. Now, all of that's actually quite true, to a degree. However, what was happening is that because I was drinking alcohol regularly, that ongoing sustained level of never ever leaving me stress wasn't because I was pushing and shoving and, and really trying to grow in my career. The reality is that 75-80% of it was down to the fact that alcohol was in the way. And the reason I know that is when I then went down the route of complete and utter sobriety from 2017 for 2.5 years, probably within about 2 months, that level of stress just subsided quite a lot. And it's little things like that where actually people maybe don't create the association, not just the hangover, but the subsequent days after having it, going on a bender or the consistent drinking, is actually how it has quite a significant impact on mental health. Now, I'd like to. Oh, congratulations, by the way, because you tripped 1,000 days this week, didn't you? Of sobriety.
Yeah.
I saw you post.
I did, yeah. And to be fair, obviously my journey's a little bit heavier than most,
Tell us about it, Nick. I think this sort of share, I like to hear it, and I think it's dead valuable for people. So can we dip into that, please?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, listen, I openly speak about the fact that I had some health problems myself over the last 5-7 years, and I lost with an unknown cause. I lost 90% sight in my left eye around 5 years ago, and about 3 years ago, I was facing potentially going fully blind, and had to prepare myself. Voice recognition, couldn't read text, couldn't read emails, had to basically, and I was very lucky in the fact that whilst we haven't been able to find the cause, we've been able to stabilize my right eye. So things, as it stands today, I've got enough sight in my right eye and it's stable for the time being. So I'm very lucky. But I chose to run away from all of my feelings, all of my emotions, and basically, like a lot of people do, I blocked everything out, pretended to the outside world that everything was fine, and I used alcohol as a coping mechanism. But the problem was, the more that I was suffering, the more alcohol I needed to cope, and it basically was a vicious cycle. And ultimately, I became an alcoholic. And at my height, I was drinking probably a full bottle of vodka a day and 4 bottles of wine, and that was every single day. And yeah, my dependency on alcohol was huge, and I had to go take myself out of the whole world, and I spent 5 months going to different rehabs around the world, and spent 5 months working on myself, and doing a huge amount of work on myself. And I am very lucky to have come back from the end of the road. And I describe it as probably 1 in 5% of people that manage to get back from the end of the road. But that's my driver, that's my why as to why I've set up Clarity and why I do now what I'm doing, because I know I can't help anybody at the end of the road, but what I can do is showcase and help to allow people to see what is possible on their own journeys. So yeah, it's been a journey, shall we say. And I've certainly got a few t-shirts over the last few years of my own experiences, that's for sure. Some of which I wouldn't wish on anybody, to be fair.
No, and I think like that level of consumption, we're in a that's considerable dependency, for sure. So I think if somebody came to me in that sort of place, that's someone that you're right. That's referring on to even more specialist support when it comes to that point. I'll tell you what I'd like to understand, Alex, what would be is share what you can, don't share what you can't, obviously. But from that whole process, you've done the rehab. I think you might have done a bit, maybe some therapy and things like that. Can you, from that whole experience, what sort of nuggets could you share from maybe understanding why you went down to that place initially, and actually what you learned about yourself and this whole addiction process? Because it'd be quite handy to, anything you can share.
No, listen, 100%. And I openly admit that I grew up in a different era. I describe it as, where basically a man was a man and you didn't speak about your emotions, and it was perceived that if you were a stronger man, you kept everything to yourself, you stiff upper lip, you bottled it all up, and you cracked on, no matter what was going on the outside world or what challenges you faced. You didn't talk, and that was the first 40 years of my life, that I wouldn't allow anybody to know, how I felt or what was going on inside. So to the outside world, I was always the stronger person, looking after everybody else, and putting everybody else first to run away from having to face, myself effectively. And what it's taught me is that actually the stronger man talks, the stronger person talks. It's not just about a man. The stronger person talks, the stronger person communicates, the stronger person needs support, needs sounding boards, and sometimes it's easier to speak to a total stranger than it is to speak to a loved one who has already got or been on a certain part of the journey with you. And sometimes the easier thing is to actually have that communication with somebody totally new, who comes to it with a fresh pair of eyes, where there's no prejudgment. So yeah, I would say that if you are feeling, like you're not happy or you've got struggles or something's going on, be brave and speak to somebody. Make that first step of actually saying to somebody, doesn't matter who it is, it doesn't have to be somebody who's ultimately really close to you. Step out your comfort zone and speak up a little bit, because what you get back will surprise you. And actually, the stronger people are able to talk and communicate, and it's natural to have every single feeling, whether that's scared, whether that's worried, whether that's uncomfortable, whatever feeling. I mean, ridiculously, I didn't allow myself to cry. So I didn't allow myself to cry for like 20 years because I saw it as a sign of weakness, and which is ridiculous. And then when I did finally cry, it was like the floodgates had opened, and that was me. It was like ridiculous. It was like I couldn't turn the tap off then. So yeah, it's been, sometimes you face these challenges and you go through something, and if you're able to come out the other side, I've learned so much. I have learned so much and changed so much in my life, and the way I live my life, the way I communicate with people, the way I am honest, open, and speak from my heart, I guess.
Yeah, I love that, mate. And I think there's a few bits in there that I'll just pick up on. So 100%, I think our generation, we're not meant to show any vulnerability, stiff upper lip, dig deep, crack on, man up, all this stuff. And I say a little bit like the trend with alcohol. I'm starting to see a similar trend. You know, there's men's clubs, Andy's Man's Club. There's another guy I'm talking to that's just setting up another brotherhood forum, whatever. You know, and I know we're leaning into. I mean, I generally work with men, so I'm leaning into that gender at the moment. But I think that what I would say is being an external point of contact for my clients and people that I work with. You mentioned there that that's rather than burdening the partner, you know, the wife or husband, you know, whatever it is, or the kids or the friends or whatever, you've got that external qualified, trained person that can actually be that sounding board to help you to work through and unpick whatever you've got to work through. I think that's massive. But what I would say here is that where I've personally seen the best results is with people that have been more open and honest and literally left no stone unturned. You know, one of my clients, he's that honest. He'll talk to other people about what's going on in our sessions. I won't do that because I'm under NDA and I would never do that. But you know, he is like literally no stone unturned. But the point here is that he has got the most tremendous results from that process. So what you said there, spot on. But I still see it a lot. You know, I reach out to a lot of people. You know, when I connect with people, whether I'm messaging people, or it might be an email or whatever, and I still see that quite a lot. There's this stiff upper lip and I'm all right, you know, I don't need any help. And actually, my view is that I believe that whatever situation you're in, where you were stuck in, you know, in a heavy dependency, where I was, where it was regular drinking every single night and partying at the weekends and just not doing myself any favours, whether you're actually in a position where you're not drinking anymore, there's still more potential that you can find. So I think there's a massive, massive benefit in that, in anyone, in whatever stage of life you're at, having an external resource to go to.
Well, listen, 1,000,000%. And I say it all the time that whilst I don't think it needs to be rehab for every single person, I always say, after having spent 5 months stepping outside of the world and basically doing all this work on myself, that I actually say that if every single person in the world spent 28 days working on themselves, the world would be a much better place. And I am a massive advocate for whether it's a coach, a therapist, groups, community, you know, for people having and trying different things. Because ultimately, if we're not prepared to, I guess if you always do what you've always done, then you'll always get what you've always got. So unless you're willing to step outside your comfort zone and try something new, then you're going to stay stuck. You're going to stay stuck in, you know, and I almost go, what have you got to lose by trying something? If it doesn't work, you try something else. And if, you know, and it's like, if you want to find and get the best version of yourself and actually enjoy your life as much as you possibly can, and you've got an opportunity to do a little bit of work on yourself, you know, do it. 1,000,000%. I would advocate doing it to anybody and everybody.
100%. Good. Okay, so let's shuffle on a little bit, because I've obviously been to some of your events and had great fun. I liked how you described it at the start of this conversation. It's bang on this, you know, and it doesn't just apply to having fun. It applies to even how we actually move our bodies, even, you know, squat and things like that. But as kids, for most people anyway, for the majority of people, there's no alcohol involved, is there? And you go out, you have fun. Obviously, in our generation, there was no tech. Maybe the odd computer, a Commodore 64 or Spectrum 48K, what I had, you know, but you'd be outdoors playing, mucking around. I've got memories of being outdoors and being that tired and like no energy left because I've hardly eaten anything all day, that you're sort of laughing and rolling around and you've just limped because I've just got nothing left in the tank, you know, because I've just been out all day. And you're right. And I've got some really fond memories of some of the events I've been to with Clarity, you know, one of them. I was picked up for being quite competitive, actually, but you've got all the games. So after food, we've got all the games around the room, haven't we, you know? I think you picked me up on one where you had to hit a button where the light was going up and down. You had to hit a button on the middle part, and I was getting quite competitive on that. And then you've got the old school like the old school rifle shooting duck game,
Yeah,
the wire on the gun, And I think the last shot got me to either second or top of the league table with the last duck sort of thing. And I was I was high-fiving myself for about 20 minutes afterwards, because I was dead chuffed. But what it was doing is we were tapping into just normal fun, normal entertainment, normal feelings that sometimes get suppressed or shifted out of the way when we're just smashing booze down our neck. So let's talk a little bit more about those events. That you've done a lot of this now, and it's a key thing. Your strapline on LinkedIn talks about being an alcohol-free events pioneer or something like that. I think.
Yeah, because you take a step back. Everybody ran away from putting their head above the parapet and going and doing these big alcohol-free events, because the corporate world has always been booze. Everything has always been booze. For as long as I've been in the industry, 25 years, everything always centered around alcohol. So I said, I'm going to change it. I'm going to change it because the change is coming. And whether it might take another 5-10 years beyond, when I first set up, the change is coming definitely. And it also allows me to showcase and shine a light on what is possible. And I look at the statistics around workplaces now, and it's got to a stage where over a third of employees are not wanting to go to corporate work nights out because they're still centered around alcohol. And that is massive. That's basically shouting volumes that things are changing. And then I'm looking at things from a employer point of view and going, you have the new generation, which I call them the Gen Z. Some people tell me off for that. Let's call them the younger generation. Then we've got the historic older generation who have always been around the booze culture. And then you've got the middle generation where something like 1 in 3 are very mindful now, very mindful about sometimes drinking, sometimes not. So you've got 3 different demographics as far as I'm concerned. And then you've also got different religions, different cultures, different beliefs, and you put all that into one mixing pot. And how do you create a inclusive company work night out that centers around alcohol? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So, this is where and why Clarity was formed, to give people the choices. And again, I always say this, I am not telling anybody not to drink. That is not my mantra. I am about creating choice, options, and allowing people to get the balance. Because let's be honest, if you want to be inclusive and if you want to be attracting the best of the younger and upcoming talent, then you need to show that you're moving with the times as a company. Because if you're thinking that you're going to do all the booze stuff and attract the next generation of who will be the leaders in 10, 15 years time, you're not going to, because that's not what they want. And the times have significantly changed. My son's 20, and he can go to the pub and have 1 pint, or he can go to the pub and have no drinks and still be around all his friends. And I take a step back and think about when I was 20, 25 years ago, if I was going out, I was going out to get drunk. That was as simple as it was.
That's right. Yeah,
but that was the culture. That was the culture, and that's what all of us did 25 years ago. Whereas you move on 25 years, and now the next generation are actually going out to be socializing, to be around their friends. The alcohol is almost like a take it or leave it for them. And they want to actually have fun, have some entertainment, and be engaged with who they're with. And it's totally changed. And yeah, things are moving forward. Definitely. And you can only go off the statistics and what basically, is basically being shouted about. you know, from all the statistics, from all the research, from all the stuff that's coming out. But I'm seeing it firsthand. I actually went to a university campus 2 weeks ago on a Friday night. And what was really powerful was all the bars were dead, absolutely dead. And the gym was absolutely chocker, absolutely rammed. And I thought to myself, wow, if you'd gone to that 25 years ago, there would have been nobody in the gym and all the bars would have been absolutely chocker. And isn't it strange how times have changed?
Considerably, mate. You're right. So just picking up on the point you said, what was the objective? So or am I now 49? Yeah. So go back 20, go back 30 years. What was the objective? The objective was you just kept drinking, and that's how you had fun. That was how I'd been nurtured, grown. That's how I grew up. That's how my parents had fun. That's how I heard laughter and fun. It was just when you turn 18 or a bit before, you have a drink and that's how you have fun. That's it. That was the association. But then what you said there, I want to just stay on the corporate bit for a while, because this is an area I'd like to explore a little bit more. Is that I've had loads of conversations, people that specialize in, diversity, equity and inclusion, around recruiting and making sure you get a diverse workforce. And you've picked up on a great point there. A lot of religions and a lot of people now, younger generation, Gen Z, or just younger people are choosing to not bother and are engaging in a more healthy relationship with alcohol. Times are changing when you look at this whole influencer trend now, and I know a lot of it's bloody fabricated, bloody glamour and, lies, but, people are, creating healthy morning routines. They're creating better habits. They're doing more healthier things for their body. They're making choices that are going to give them more longevity in life, and they're going to live longer. People that are turning 40 and 50, that used to be a time when actually you accepted that you were on the down, you were going to be going downhill. But actually now everyone's sort of 40, 50. There's a lot of things, whether it's ways of living, ways of behaving, training styles, things that you can do for your body, and even supplementary stuff and treatments that can actually enable people now to continue on that upward trajectory and still live in a healthy, optimal, long life. So I think there's a significant shift socially and culturally around that. But when we look at just come back to the equity and diversity and inclusion inside the corporate world. So I said at the start, I'll put a link. It's only a short video that Alcohol Change have put on my website, and I think it is absolutely brilliant. Now I can read it with a set of eyes that where it lands, as in someone that used to drink a hell of a lot and now has got control over that issue. Obviously, you'll read it in a different way as well, Alex. But the way the video is put together, it's very clever. It's intimating that people are receiving text messages, or they're in a WhatsApp group, and it's basically things like, guys, 5 o'clock, is everyone coming to the pub for a beer after work? Guys, we've got the awards due coming up, and it was every single message, whether it was pub after work, drinks with a client, awards coming up, or whatever it was all centered around a message being received by somebody that said, what's coming up involves alcohol. And what I'd say to people listening to this, whether you're a business leader, maybe considering how you can create a better culture within your own business, or whether you're just someone that's part of a team, as when somebody is either has stopped drinking, knows they've got issues and is trying to deal with it, has some form of addiction, is really struggling with that, or indeed doesn't recognize it yet and just is going to go out and get absolutely obliterated at these dues. And it puts them in a really challenging situation, because they're almost then trying to swim against the tides. The business and everyone in that business are wanting to go somewhere and have drinks, and for them, they're like, what, I could really do without that. And like you said, Alex, the statistics saying there's about 30% of people are starting to avoid these sort of events because they know it's going to revolve around alcohol. And I think that stands out like a sore thumb at the moment, is there are so many people that are now deciding to stop drinking, reduce drinking, not drink at all, that actually to create that all-inclusive environment it's not possible if alcohol's at the flipping centre of it, is it?
No, because look, even if you took a group of 10 people, so even if your team was 10 people, if you take those 10 people and you give each of them 5, 6 drinks each, you are going to have different reactions from those 10 people. You do it to 100, you're going to have a variety of different people. 200, massive, and you just do not know how somebody is going to react. Alcohol to some people, can bring out the worst in them. It can make people angry. It can make people sad. It can make people, become a different version of themselves. And you don't know what you're going to get. You do not know what you're going to get. So it's a lottery, basically. And then the more that you're rolling the lottery, the more that basically you're plowing people full of drinks, and especially on free bars and free, people are enabled to drink as much as they possibly can, as fast as they possibly can, and it's what reaction, what are you going to get? You just have no idea.
I wonder whether when a corporate free bar, the free drinks are alcohol free. Maybe that's the route to take. You can have free drinks as many as you want, but they'll have no alcohol in there. You go pay for the ones with alcohol. That's it.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, Chris, to see that Ascot had its own stand this year with 0-0 Peroni 0-0 at Ascot. We are just doing the Shine Awards in October, which is a mental health awards night for all companies actually doing good things and actually promoting good things within their businesses to try and shine a light so that other people can learn from others and other people can see things. But we're doing that at Aintree Racecourse because the Jockey Club are massive and they appreciate that they're going to have to adapt. They're going to have to change and not be just known as all this booze culture and gambling. If they want to basically, continue to have the success that they've had, they are going to have to move with the times and they're going to have to offer different things and offer 0-0 alcohol-free options, some more entertainment, to go alongside and not just be relying on the old booze culture. And they're partnered with us, for the Shine Awards at Aintree in October. So, which is great. I'm loving the fact that, these bigger organizations are actually beginning to see, that they can't be, solely reliant on what was and how things used to be. And things are changing. And more companies, we've just announced that we're doing a Clarity Christmas with Pro Manchester in Manchester, a huge networking community with 350 businesses, and we've partnered with them to do a Clarity Christmas, alcohol-free Christmas parties in Manchester. And I was in Manchester this week, and all of the talk and all of the feedback is there's so much excitement about it. And people are coming up to me going, "Oh, this is going to be amazing. So glad that we're not doing the old, boring, boozy affair where basically it's just ridiculous. It's rinse and repeat the same thing. Really looking forward to this. This is like, so exciting." And I thought to myself, I know, this is the right things. And you can see people's actually excitement, actually engagement. And then to your point, they see some of the games, they, know that they're going to be interacting challenges, it just brings the best out of everybody because everybody's on the same level. There's no, lottery. You know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get. You're not basically rolling the dice, and wondering what's going to happen.
No, and I think that's the other. So what I find really interesting now, naturally, I'm going to draw these conversations. So I've been away this week 3 days on a sort of marketing workshop, and she had a taxi with a woman that she coaches female entrepreneurs in London, chatting away, lovely woman, like chatting away in the taxi and asking what I do. So I always explain what I do. Yes, alcohol is sort of like a real niche area for me to work in. It's not all the work I do, but it's an area I can definitely help people with. And she then starts to open up herself about the fact that her husband, they do well for themselves. You know, there's a lot of success around the couple and the family. And he, high pressure job, lots of stress in the corporate world, everything revolved around alcohol, drinking all the time. They used to go to the pub most nights, you know, and all this stuff where everything seemed to really revolve around alcohol. And he was using alcohol, like what you said back in the day, and certainly the way what I did, because I thought it worked. Is I used to, he was drinking in the evening just to calm the nerves, which it does the exact opposite. And I sat there, and I can't tell you how many times I have been on the receiving end of those sort of stories where somebody has shared a negative. Well, actually, hers was a negative and positive. So it was causing problems with her relationship. And what she said was he chose to stop drinking about 18 months ago. She says the change she's seen in him just as a person, visually, lost some weight, more calm, so much better with relationship with her, you know, less stress, just all the stuff that comes with dealing with it. She says, because my view is that if someone's got an unhealthy relationship with alcohol and it gets dealt with and you move it out of the way, I believe that it is one of the most transformative things that you can do in your life. I honestly stand by that. The change in you from where you are when you're drinking regularly to where you can be when it's not in your system is like night and day. I just think it's such a significant shift. You know, I work with one of my clients has just gone 365 days yesterday, so he sent me a message, happy day, high five, you know, we're all celebrating. And the change in him has been significant because at the very start, his anxiety was like through the roof. It was I've probably not met anyone whose anxiety from alcohol was so high. But the point being, I obviously will, you would probably be the same. You know, you talk to people and so many people share, you know, the awful stories around alcohol and some examples in the corporate world where what people need to understand is from a HR perspective, a company works do, whether it's a Christmas do, it's a staff do, it's events, it's awards, they are seen as an extension of work hours. They are seen as work. So therefore, if anything does go wrong, and I've seen it happen, you know, I've seen someone have an unnecessary pop, an argument with a HR manager, for example. She was straight in the office the following morning, hungover, you know, and didn't go very well. You know, people need to understand that, you know, when you are in a corporate event, actually, it is an extension of work time as well. So I rambled on a little bit there because I just wanted to highlight the point that whilst people could watch this and say, well, you know, I've gone out and a drink and had a really fun time and had a great time. That's good. Like you said, I don't want to preach sobriety. I just want to create awareness and help people to have a better relationship with alcohol, if at all, but learn and understand the shift and impact it has when you move it out of the way. So if I asked you from your, because you know the change from the bottle of vodka and 3 bottles of wine at your peak, you know, to where you are now, I mean, flipping, that is significant change. So what you mentioned before that you're a better person. I see sometimes that you create content and post around your relationship with your kids, with your they're older, not kids.
Yeah.
So for people watching this, what would you say from your own perspective are the sort of the real, like the real shifts, the real positives that you've now gained in life from the change you've made?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to simplify it and say that I spent a lot of my life trying to look after everybody else and running around and doing everything for everybody else, trying to make everybody else happy. And I didn't have a clue who I was really, or what I wanted, or what I really enjoyed, or how to get the best version of myself. And it took me all this personal work that I've done to realize that and to find myself. And I think since finding myself, I understand that I have to treat myself like I would treat my child, like I would treat my partner, like I would treat my mum and dad. And I've got to treat myself like that. So I've got to, you know when I'm tired, know when I'm trying to do too much, know when, you know, basically I'm being moody. I openly admit that. Know when I need a bit of time to myself. You know, know when maybe my social batteries, you know, run down. You know when I've got lots to give. And by doing that, I actually get the best version of myself, but then it's a ripple effect. Everybody else gets the best version of me. Everybody else gets the best version of me because I am able to look after myself like I would look after my child, my partner, my loved ones. And if I can do that, everybody else will get the best version of me. I'm a lot more calm. I'm a lot more, to your point, Chris, the alcohol used to just basically take you up and down, up and down, up and down. And obviously for me at the end, it was just always like, like this. But now I don't have those, spikes of up and down, up and down, up and down. I've got a very, nice little wave of a life. It's very balanced, and it's actually really enjoyable. It's actually really enjoyable just to be at a nice balanced level where it's not the vicious, peaks and troughs.
Agreed. And I think that's something that I would say is that I've noticed myself, is that you're right, you get your supposed highs and then clattering lows, but actually you are able to create. I really enjoy stoicism, and that sort of that whole philosophy. I just like I read quite a bit about it each day, and I feel like there's you do become a better person. You become a more emotionally stable person. I found there's a lot of work there's a lot of stuff to uncover and unpick when you shift alcohol out of the way. There's generally stuff that'll come to the surface that you've got to go and do some work on, and and the root causes, and like you said, starting to respect yourself and maybe build a bit of self-esteem, inner confidence, be a little bit selfish, set some boundaries, all that sort of stuff. There's quite a process to go through, but very liberating process. So good. Now I'm conscious of time, so I don't want them too long. We're over 45 minutes. Really, I could keep yapping on about this forever and a day. To be honest with you, good conversation. So let's just try and top and tail around the corporate land again. Just so this is so you've got the Clarity Christmas coming up in Manchester. So just if anyone wants any details on that, where can they find it? I've got the links you shared around the website, but what's the best way to find out about the event if someone's interested?
Yeah, so the events, because we've partnered up with Pro Manchester, it's on Pro Manchester's, it should be on our own actually as well. Basically, it's Clarity Christmas Pro Manchester. And if you look on our socials and our website and stuff, everything's advertised with regards to that as well. And then the Shine Awards in October. And we've still got 3 weeks for anybody to nominate anybody, any companies, any individuals, any charities, anybody doing great stuff in and around the mental health space. Because I keep it simple, Chris, in the fact that if there is a company of 100 staff, not just tick box exercise, but have actually found something that is truly, really working, then why do only 100 people know about it? Why aren't we shouting, shining a light and allowing thousands of other people to have the benefit of, doing something that truly works? And this is what the Shine Awards are all about. Ourselves, we partnered up with Steps Together, who's a private rehab, and they are moving further into doing burnout and reset programs. And what we're trying to do is showcase and shine a light on companies that have actually found something, and good ways of looking after their staff. And I think it's so important. And again, the whole night that we're going to be doing at Aintree Racecourse on the 9th of October is alcohol free. And we will have probably 400 to 500 people in what I describe as the alcohol free mental health BAFTAs. So I describe it as the BAFTAs. The BAFTAs without the booze.
Good, mate. Good. All right. Well, what I'll do, we'll get those links and I'll pin them in a comment below anyway. So websites where people can go and find more information. So good. I appreciate that. So let's think about. I always just like to summarize these conversations just with a few takeaways, really, a few actionable steps for individuals. So So I'm going to throw the first point in, and then you follow on with your bits if you don't mind. So I think something that stood out early on in the conversation, and it aligns to what I do anyway, is if you, male or female, feel that you're struggling in whatever way, shape, or form, raise your hand, put it up, and go and seek some relevant support. Whether there's groups that you can go to. One of my clients I mentioned who's on 365 days yesterday, he's anti-groups. It's just me and him, that's it. It's just he really wants a private relationship. So therefore working with an independent person one-to-one was right for him. Other people really, they thrive in a community, in a group, or whatever it's going to be. But I just want to say from an individual perspective, yeah, I agree with what Alex said. I think that's where that's the brave decision where you actually choose to open up and recognize, I wouldn't mind working with somebody or working on myself to make some changes here. So that's my first thing. What would you add? What takeaways for whoever's watching it?
Yeah, and I think it's really important that everybody realizes that just because one thing is right for one person doesn't mean that it's right for everybody. And we are all unique. And to be fair, some people will have a great balanced relationship with alcohol, and some people will totally not. And I think you've got to be honest with yourself. You will know if you've got a good relationship. Have you got a healthy relationship with alcohol? Are you able to go and have 2 or 3 drinks and say, I've had enough now, and go home at a reasonable time? And are you disciplined around it? If you are, amazing. If you're one of the other people that basically, I used to describe myself as Pringles. Once I popped, I couldn't stop. Genuinely. But it's true. It's true, Chris. Even going back to my old days, I was never a controlled drinker. I drunk to carry on drinking and get drunk. And I couldn't have 3 or 4 drinks and then turn around and go, oh, that's enough for me now. I couldn't do it. That wasn't me. And I never had, looking back, I never have had a healthy relationship with alcohol. Never. And I'm open and old enough and ugly enough to admit that now, that I didn't, but everybody knows in the heart of hearts if you've truly got a healthy relationship with it. If you have, amazing. If you haven't, maybe it's time just to, ponder that. And the first point could just be, have a think about it. That's all I would suggest.
No, that's good, Matt. I think it's very I just want to add a little bit on that point. From my own experience, it's very easy to choose to ignore it and just think of any other reason why you feel like you do, or why you behave like you do, or why you did what you did. You'll try and find any other reason apart from leaning into alcohol. That's just something to be mindful of, and that's something to consider if you're going to take that time to ponder and have a think. So that's good. And I think that the last bit I want to put here, and I want to go to the leaders of business. I want to go to that's the person I would work with, and that's obviously the starting point for you and the work that Clarity does as well. Albeit it filters down for both of us. The idea is you work with the senior people and you have a ripple effect through the wider team and the business. But I think that it's really important now, based on everything that Alex and I have shared, and based on some of the stats that Alex has shared, around the fact that culturally and in our society, let's just stay in the UK for now, drinking habits are changing. And for you to continue to not only attract but retain the very best people for your business, you are going to need to make sure that you have as best you can a really all-inclusive environment. And I guess unfortunately, fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, alcohol at the epicenter of every single thing that you do isn't setting an inclusive standard, and that's fact. Now, that's not opinion. That is it. That's what the stats are telling us. So be fair to your employees, be considerate. Just because you have a drink and say the senior team have a drink, there's going to be people in that team that may not drink might not even want to tell you because they're embarrassed, they're fearful for the job. They don't want to tell you in case they're an outcast. You know, they want to tell you in case you think they've got a problem, you're going to sack them. You know, there'll be all of this sort of stuff going on. So yeah, just please, off the back of this conversation, if one senior leader in a business takes the time to reflect on the culture of their business and how they go about entertaining and doing all the social stuff, and it makes a few changes to include a few more people, then I think we won, really. So that's the last thing I'd like to add.
Yeah, we could speak all day, mate. Could literally chat all day, but it's been really, really powerful. And I hope everyone's enjoyed it who's tuned in.
Happy days, mate. Thank you. Yeah, and I'll make sure I'll push it out, because I'm pretty sure that folk can watch it after it's been done. So, and I'll upload it to my YouTube sort of area as well, so people can access it. But mate, I appreciate your time. I've enjoyed the conversation. It's one of those topics that you could rattle around forever and a day, and there's loads of areas to explore. But appreciate it. I'll drop all the links in for Alex's business, Clarity, the events, and Pro Manchester. We'll get everything in there so you've got access to it as well. And if anybody has any questions, if it's read any thoughts from the conversation, feel free to reach out to either myself or Alex on LinkedIn. If people want to get hold of you, I'm guessing just LinkedIn's probably a good place to get.
LinkedIn's perfect. Yeah, LinkedIn's perfect. Yeah.
Same here. All right, happy days. Sound right. Good. There we go. Thank you for your time, pal. That is a fantastic conversation. Appreciate it. You take care.
You too, mate. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.